And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Sean, we witnessed one of the most ridiculous offensive outputs of this NFL season, maybe in the past 5 years or more, and also a record in NFL history was broken in this game. I'm, of course, talking about the Rams' 44-42 freaking win over the Buffalo Bills in Los Angeles. And that record that was broken, Josh Allen became the first player in NFL history to have 3 rushing touchdowns and 3 passing touchdowns in the same damn game. Now, I think that it's important to contextualize here. Whatever the hell the Rams were all hopped up on, whatever it was, I don't think it's repeatable. But what is repeatable is Josh Allen's dominance and his impact. We glazed him last week. We're glazing him again here. What he does is just unreal. The way that he took over this freaking game is insane. If he's not their starting quarterback, this is a 44-21 blowout instead of a 44-42 almost comeback.
I'm not going to glaze Josh Allen. I'm going to berate his selfish ass for not letting James Cook get one in.
Oh,
Needed him.
No. Stop it. You don't have any right to talk about being disenfranchised by somebody not scoring or an outcome not going your way because I lost out on a shit ton of money on my bet.
Okay, I'm glad you gave some context there. I can't also be upset. Okay, good.
It's not the same.
Gosh, I had some money on the game also. All right.
Yeah, how much did you have on the game?
Hey, don't worry.
You didn't have as much as I had on the goddamn game.
Get your eyes out of my pockets, please. The Bills.
You know what you're doing.
It is still amazing what Josh Allen is doing, and I'm actually in my personal life getting apology texts to Josh Allen in group chats for those that were trashing him last year, back-to-back weeks.
Non-ball knowers. That's a non-ball knower activity.
Somebody has had to come out and explicitly say, I'm apologizing to Josh Allen again. Unfortunately, they're not total non-ball knowers because this time last year, Josh Allen was throwing picks. The Bills looked like they were in disarray, and we didn't know if Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs could make it work in the postseason. Right now, he's doing it with Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins, and Amari Cooper, just balling. It's unbelievable. And I also love the Rams. I just do. They're so good for football. Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. It's one of these marriages that I wish they had got together sooner because they would have had more Super Bowls. They would have been an absolute tank in the NFC. And they've built it up also. Kyron Williams, I know he came from a small school, not a legacy heritage school.
Shut your mouth.
But they can find really good ball players from anywhere. 2 touchdowns for him in this game. Just a stellar one. And maybe the Rams given us the 2 best games in the last 5 years with the Rams-Bills this week and the Rams-Chiefs Monday Night Football. Unbelievable game.
This does not hold a candle to that that Rams-Chiefs game on Monday Night Football. Extremely exciting. It feels like that their health, though, is coming back, which was such an issue for the Rams early on in the year. We talked about this, how they were the injury bug team. Maybe things start to line up at the end of the year. Their defense clearly still is not fully there, but their offense can score at the best of them. The Bills have been stout and have had huge performances on both sides of the football this season. I think, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, I really think that this performance illustrates why the Rams are maybe primed if they can work their way into the playoff, if they could win the NFC West, why they could go on a little bit of a run here and go on a little bit of a tear because their record is not indicative of how good of a team they are and how well coached they are and how explosive they can be when Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford are all in their freaking bag because they look like a Super Bowl team with the way that they played against the Bills.
They're the last team I would want to play in the playoffs, whether they're NFC West winners or they're a wild card squad. I have no delusions that they're the Super Bowl favorite in the NFC or that they would go to the championship game even. But I don't want to play Sean McVay and his genius in the playoffs. And I'm finally turning the corner on him completely because it's not his fault that he was unique and the media just had a field day and gave him 2 years of unadulterated run. That rubbed people the wrong way. It just always does. Couple years removed, he is one of the best minds in football, and the Rams are lucky to have him. And if you give him time to prepare in the playoffs and to get this team up, I don't care if you're the Lions, I don't care if you're the Eagles or the Packers. You don't want to play them because you could have Matt Stafford going off in games like this.
Now, I would like to bring up why people were maybe wondering why I was just yelling at Sean. This is one of the baddest beats I've ever suffered. Certainly not the worst beat out there for anybody, but on Friday night, $40 left in my Bet Online account. And I said, you know what? The college season's basically over. Why don't we have a little fun here? And we're going to start rolling these outcomes over. So I put $40 down on Boise State to cover against UNLV. Boom, lock, easy, cashed it. $70. Put that then down on Arizona State to cover. Couldn't have covered any easier. Boom, locked, cashed it.
Yeah.
I took Georgia money line. And I think I was up to, at that point, I was up to $300. Georgia hits. I then carried that over. I just kept rolling it over. I kept rolling it over and rolling it over. I rolled it over to Clemson money line to win the ACC championship game. And I decided after I had $800 in my account that I was going to do, you know what? I did. Luck is on my side. I hit 4 in a row. I got cocky. I got really freaking cocky. Should have just cashed it out. Would have been a nice little $800 put in my pocket. Would have paid for groceries for the next 2 months. But no, I decided to take that money like a dumbass and throw it on a 3-leg parlay, which up until this game was trending in a good direction because I had the Steelers money line. I had the Bucs money line. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to happen. We're going to win it. It wasn't a crazy amount. It was like $2.5 grand. Would have been a nice little bit of money to throw in my pocket to have carried around for the rest of the year, maybe.
I needed it too, man. Oh,
shut your mouth. And it didn't hit.
Too.
Thanks to the Rams for playing out of their freaking minds and playing the best game that they have in the last maybe 10 years.
Yeah, that's what happens. I tried to warn you, but you know what?
Every time you warned me, I kept putting it back in and it was working.
You were hot.
You were hot.
It was
the anti-jinx.
I couldn't even call you, say this is a bad bet or it was a bad pick when you told me the 3 teams. I'm like, you know what? There's probably 3 best bets that we got this week.
Well, it was also one of your best bets. So that was where I knew that I was screwed because 2 of my best bets this weekend were Browns Bucks. Were related to the Steelers game and the Bucks game. And then you had, of course, the freaking Bills. And I should have checked the doc and knew not to bet in your direction.
Yeah, that would have been smart. I don't know what's going on with the picks I'm giving out NFL-wise on this show. I'm hitting in real life. I'm hitting like a madman in real life.
If anyone wants to fade you, where can they do it?
Yeah, they would go to Bet Online. Trust me. You listen to these shows that we put out on Wednesday and Thursday. You want some money? I hate giving credit to this idiot with the hot hand in the NFL, and I hate that I watch every minute possible of NFL, and I can't give you guys consistent enough winners, so just tail me at Bet Online. It's the world's most trusted betting platform. I am the world's least trusted betting giver, but the Bet Online's the number one source for online betting. They got all the sports, all the football. I'm telling you right now, cherish the football betting. Cherish it. Like, hold it close to you for dear life.
Now, strikeout bets are where it's at, man. I'm the best at strikeout bets.
I just can't think about baseball season yet. Head to Bet Online today, and don't forget to use promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here.
All right, Sean, next game I want to talk about the Eagles in a surprisingly close game against the Carolina Panthers of all teams. 22-16 is the final score. Jalen Hurts, one of his worst games as a passer, only 108 total passing yards. They did not look like they had any juice trying to throw the football. One game that I think a lot of people are calling into question, can they really drop back and pick you apart through the air? And if they're forced and their run game is taken away, what's going to happen? Saquon becomes the all-time leader in Eagles single-season rushing yards with 1,623, and now he's on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record with 1,222. I think that illustrates for anyone wondering, hey, if you take away the run game, what happens? Well, I don't think you can exactly take away the run game because Saquon is playing as good as he is.
Yeah, it is. The identity of the Eagles is run it with Saquon Barkley, and that's what it should be. That's great. They are winning because of it. He looks like a brand new player. He looks fantastic. But there are issues in the pass game that we could not ignore any longer. The A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts dynamic keeps on getting deeper, as A.J. Brown discussed how the pass game and some slight criticism in a post-game press conference. People are obviously reading too deep into it. But for the most part, that's telling. It's not saying, yeah, that's my guy. We're in a great flow state right now, and the ball's getting to me great, because it's not. Jalen Hurts' last 3 games hasn't gone over 200 yards, and he's gone down in yardage every single one. 179, 118, 108. 1 touchdown, 2. You have to target the big man. Eventually, you have to get the ball to A.J. Brown because he's getting open and he is an elite talent on the outside. They have an issue. And eventually, there's going to be a team that decides to load the box and drop down to safety because they know, or they're going to let Jalen Hurts try to beat them with his arm, which so far this season, haven't seen much of it. That's exactly what I would do. I would totally treat it as if I was playing Iowa. I would just load that box up. And when you start carving me, then we have that discussion and we adjust. But right now, this Eagles team, as good as they are very one-dimensional.
One-dimensional, but that one dimension works to true success, that even if they're playing a bad game, they're going to still find ways to win, and Saquon is going to run all over your ass. Speaking of a team that still finds ways to win, holy shit, man. The Kansas City Chiefs, the most unreal way possible, close-ass game in the division against the Chargers on Sunday Night Football. Super close. Mahomes gets him in a position to kick a field goal, a 31-yarder to win the football game. You don't have Butker. You've got a different guy in there kicking the field goal, and it careens off of the post and almost doinks out. Why do they keep doing this? How does this keep happening? It's not even to the degree of the fact that they're 10-0 in one-possession games, but it's also the fact that there's just this insane ball-bouncing luck that comes into play every single time that they manage to win. That is fair to bring up, though, their luck. It makes sense why they're so lucky, because they've got the best player in the NFL. When you've got the best player in the NFL on your team, luck is always going to be on your side.
Yeah, I know people are upset with the whole Matthew Wright kicker situation and him going 4 for 4 off the street and seeing Justin Tucker and Evan McPherson just have awful seasons. This Kansas City Chiefs team, I don't find them insidious. It's the Sunday night broadcast team that kills me. I cannot. Tirico's doing his best. Collinsworth, I'm starting to have a true legitimate issue with. All he does is giggle and be giddy whenever this team wins. And what were you delivered in this game? Hard hitting matchup between interdivision rivals, and he couldn't get his mouth off the Chiefs' jock the entire time. Couldn't believe what I was witnessing. I can't believe how much more professional broadcast crews were during the Patriots dynasty. They would say, man, this Tom Brady guy's unbelievable, but look at the block. Look at the wide receivers getting open. They would try to teach you a little bit about football. They would try to kind of just tell you about the game and not constantly push this Chiefs narrative over and over again. What are they doing this year? It's kind of a miracle. People are calling it dark magic. I can see it. But for the most part, it's a team with a really good defense, a solid running game, and the best quarterback in football. And that's what should be highlighted, not giggling incessantly in the booth.
Yeah, that's a fair point to bring up. The commentary has been a bit nauseating. And to just close out this thought on the Chiefs, the luck that they're having now, 1,000% is going to translate to the NFL. I've yelled plenty about college teams having like turnover luck and late game luck. It doesn't apply the same way in the NFL, and especially doesn't apply in the circumstances the way that the Chiefs are getting it. The Patriots had this weird aura that when they were in their dynasty, the calls were going their way, which is a separate conversation, but balls would bounce their way. Outcomes would finish in a direction that you wouldn't expect. They were always finding ways to win, and you just knew that if Tom Brady had the ball at the end, they would win, as long as the game was close. If the offense isn't producing as big as it could, their defense would step up and vice versa. But here we are with the Chiefs. They're the next version of it.
It's really frustrating. Just as a fan of a team that is so cursed, and Chargers fans are fans of a team that is also just about equally as cursed. To see this happen prime time, I love the theater. I will never say football has been bad this year. It has been spectacular. But Jesus, we got to figure out a way to stop these guys. It can't be a three-peat for this caliber of team. It can't be, and you know what's going to happen? It's going to be, I was talking about this today in the office. Everyone was starting to start clamoring for
an office.
I
was talking about this around the water cooler.
I was in the bullpen chopping it up. But we were talking about the possible Bills-Lions Super Bowl. That's going to be sick. I can't wait to see it. Best two teams, super exciting. You know what it's going to be? It's going to be Chiefs-Eagles again, and it's going to be just two clashes of evil.
I can't stand the thought. I don't mind the Chiefs. I can't stand the thought of the Eagles getting into the Super Bowl again.
It's what it's going to be. I don't know why it took me this long to realize it. Maybe I just needed to see the doink go in, but that's exactly what the Super Bowl matchup is going to be. Mark it.
There's nothing I hate more than teams I hate getting into the Super Bowl. So like last year I was super on edge watching the 49ers almost win it. And then the year before I was super on edge watching the Eagles almost win it. Like
why are you anti-49er?
I don't know, was that 2 years ago? Because I don't like Brock Purdy.
Oh, God.
I'm sick of the Brock Purdy glazing. Shocked when the team's not great. They're extremely mediocre. When they play good teams, they can't do shit. Oh my God! Whoa, this is so crazy. Oh my God!
He's been covered fairly this year. Purdy's has got.
No, there has been a lot of excuse making for the dude. I've seen some people that have been super critical, which I love. But there's too many people that are riding him.
Oh, you're checking out Grant Cohn and some of his discourse. God.
I mean, he's been on point for once. Sean, speaking of the playoffs, though, wild card, we're getting close. There are not many weeks remaining of this NFL season. The NFC is a very contentious race, potentially. There is a lot that can happen in these final weeks, especially what could transpire with the NFC West. So I want to pitch here for both sides of the NFL, who we think the three teams are going to be that get into the wild card. Here are the three teams that I think that get in on the NFC. I'm going to take the Vikings. I think that the Vikings showed us that they're without a doubt the second best team in the NFC North. And it just so happens that the best team in the NFC North is the Lions, and they're freaking unstoppable. So they can't help that. Vikings feel like the lock. The Packers, they have the firepower, they have the juice, they have the defense that's creating turnovers that I feel like that they're going to do enough to finish. Same bit with the Vikings in a tough division. It just sucks that they're probably going to finish 10-7, 11-6, whatever it is to push their way in. And I think that the Rams, the way that they played against the Bills, are going to go on such a run that they're going to push out the Seattle Seahawks. And they play each other at the end of the season, and I think it's going to come down to the two of them. And the Seahawks will be the last NFC wildcard team. I'm leaving out the Commanders purely because this past 2 months, they've been really up and down. And I know that they've got an easy stretch of games coming up. I just don't know which version of the Commanders I'm going to get. And I feel like we're going to get a letdown in the final 2 weeks.
I can understand that rationale. The NFC West this week and last week has been strong, and it basically comes down to NFC West second team versus NFC East second team, given the strength of the NFC North this year. I am in agreement with the Packers and the Vikings. I am keeping the Commanders in. I think they can win 3 out of their last 4 very handedly. They get the Saints, win. They get the Eagles, loss. Falcons and Cowboys, 2 wins to close out the season. Historically, I would keep the Commanders way out. This just reeks of Commanders collapse, where they beat the Saints, they lose the Eagles, they beat the Falcons, and the season's on the line versus the Cowboys, the bitter rival at the end of the year. I would put so much money on the Cowboys winning in previous years. You know why? Commanders had a bad coach. Commanders never had a quarterback. The Commanders had no energy or life. But now they're actually pushing for the playoffs, and they have the quarterback. They have the weapons on offense. So, and the Cowboys are god-awful. So I think this year they close out with 3 wins, 1 loss. They end up 11-6, and they just do it. They just start the new era off right in Washington by getting to the playoffs rookie year, Jaden Daniels. Do they lose round 1? Yes, of course they do. They're going to get beat. Their defense isn't that good. But the momentum is there for this team. Bye week couldn't have happened at a better spot. Beat up on the awful Titans, get rested up, get ready for the last 4.
The AFC is super boring because the remaining team, most of the teams have been knocked out. And then the three teams that are considered on the bubble, which are the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Bengals, they stink. They all have issues, serious issues that are crippling. That I would argue if they were in the playoff mix, I would be really disappointed if one of these teams got to the playoff because they're going to be really nauseating and boring to watch. There's also enough of a separation gap that we kind of know who these three teams are. But my three teams that I think from the AFC that are going to get into the NFL playoffs are the Ravens. They've hit a little bit of a rough patch, but they've got the structure, the defense, the run game, all that stuff that when they're clicking and they're in the playoffs and with that coaching staff and the attention to detail that they can regain the footing that they need to go on a run. Chargers look fantastic on defense, and it just took late game theatrics again for the Chiefs for them to lose on Sunday night. So I am not going to take out the Chargers whatsoever. Harbaugh is a fantastic freaking coach. Lastly, Broncos. Broncos are legit. The Broncos are way more legit than any of those three teams that I just mentioned a second ago. Bo Nix is good enough as a rookie to facilitate the ball for them to produce. And more importantly, their defense is really freaking good, minus a couple of miscues there. So I don't think it is really any hot takes, but those have to be the three teams that are in.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be Ravens, Chargers, Broncos. I believe it certainly will be. The Colts are tragic. Dolphins are tragic. Bengals are tragic. The AFC this year, tragic. 6 teams eliminated from playoff contention by week 14. Gross. That stinks. The Browns, Jags, Jets, Titans, Patriots, and Raiders. Relegate them all. That is awful.
Yeah.
Awful form from those teams this year. But you know what all those teams share? None of them have quarterbacks. That is exactly what it is. That's the quarterback market. The bottom of the AFC. Holy hell. I thought the AFC was going to be the class of the NFL over the last couple of years. This is a terrible showing from them. But the wild card teams, the playoff teams that are in there, I'm happy about. I want to see Derrick Henry in the postseason in a meaningful game with the Ravens running through people's faces. I want to see what happens when Harbaugh gets back to the postseason with this crazy Chargers team. And somehow I'm digging the Broncos again. I am. I hate Sean Payton. Can't stand him. I loathe him. But I don't mind him on the Broncos because he's got this team playing so hard. God, they play hard. Yeah, AFC is basically locked in right now. NFC, that's where you're going to want to put your eyes.
AFC is pretty pathetic that there are that many 3-loss teams or worse. It's absolutely insane. We just mentioned the Vikings, though, a second ago, and they had an unbelievable performance on offense against Sean's Atlanta Falcons. Sam Darnold, 347, 5 touchdowns. Their defense continues to make huge plays, producing turnovers on one Kirk Cousins, former Minnesota Viking, 2 interceptions in this game. I think it begs the question, are the Minnesota Vikings an actual Super Bowl threat? I'm not going to fully commit to that. I'm not going to fully commit to the Vikings being a Super Bowl threat because of who they have to encounter and to go through in order to reach the Super Bowl. The Lions are just so tough for them to get past. And in a playoff setting, when they were so close last year and how dominant their rushing attack has been and how good Jared Goff looks, I think, and as we have already seen when these teams have squared off, the Lions are just a little bit too much for them to overcome. But can they reach the NFC Championship game? Could they knock off a team like the Eagles? I think absolutely. I think that they could make a team like the Eagles one-dimensional and that they could surprise people.
The Vikings should get 2 more weeks of this passable schedule, and then we get to see what they're made of as they close out the year with the Packers and the Lions. That's going to tell me all I need to know about them at that point. But good God, they look strong. This is what this is the form that you want your team in when you're rolling into December. You want to see your quarterback clicking. You want to see everybody touching the ball. Wide receiver 1, Justin Jefferson, go ahead, have a huge game. You that's what you do. Wide receiver 2, Jordan Addison, massive game. Love seeing that. He's incorporated. Saw more TJ Hawkinson in this game versus the idiot Atlanta Falcons than I have all season. He was good. Aaron Jones, explosive out of the backfield. Now, do they have a real number 2 running back? Not really. They got Cam Akers. That's not really what you want. But the structure is there. The offensive line, not great. That is the one cog that needs tightening, the one bolt rather, that needs to be tightened up before the playoffs because they gave up like 4 or 5 sacks to the worst pass rush in the NFL this week.
That is a concern.
That can't happen. I can't have Arnold Ebiketie can't get 2 sacks in a game against you. That just can't happen. God. I'm watching. I'm like, now you're showing up, Arnold. This is what you going. And then after the fact,
means nothing.
We have
your
him,
best pass rush game. It means nothing. It doesn't mean shit.
Oh yeah, Arnold's having a career day, 2 sacks and a pressure.
Kirk Cousins had a career day in interceptions.
Next play, we got him dropping back. We got a defensive end dropping back 20 yards in coverage against a running back. It's so stupid. This team is dumb. The Vikings, actual Super Bowl threat, they're good enough to be in the conversation for it. And that's exactly where I want to be. I don't want to be the big team with the target on my back in December. I want to be the creeping, looming death, which the Vikings are.
Now here comes the real contention. The question is getting brought up a lot this week, and it's increasingly going to get brought up as the season ends and the offseason turns over. Where should Sam Darnold go this offseason? He's on a 1-year deal. I believe it's a $10 million deal. The problem is for him to re-sign with the Vikings, that would assume that you're going to sit J.J. McCarthy, their first-round pick from the past draft, for another year. He was hurt this year. He was unavailable. What do you do if you're the Minnesota Vikings? I don't think that they're going to re-sign him, nor do I think Sam Darnold should. I think Sam Darnold should seek out long-term stability, and he's going to get contract offers in those, with that sentiment. Sticking with the Vikings, there's no way that they're going to move on from J.J. McCarthy. At a certain point, they're going to turn things over to J.J. McCarthy. It does not matter the financial commitment, the amount of years. There's no way that the Vikings are going to give some sort of long-term deal. It still is going to be some sort of a placeholder situation. I think if he ended up with the Saints, that would be a tremendous fit. Giants and Raiders don't make sense because they need to start from scratch and they need to draft a new guy. They have been kicking the can down the road. It's time to hit reset. But the Saints, defensively, they've got some players. Darren Rizzi, who they should promote, is, albeit winning some games against some clunkers, still has his team playing with intensity way more than anyone would have expected him to. Bring in a brilliant offensive coordinator, let Rizzi cook with this thing, and you have Sam Darnold to take over in a situation where you're in a tough spot with figuring out what the hell to do with Derek Carr. I think that Darnold could thrive in an already quality receiver room if you brought and drafted somebody else in the upcoming draft. That's where I'd like to see him.
I can see the Saints working the bottom tier teams of the NFL. I don't think it works for Darnold. I think he is not a quarterback that really elevates, but he needs to have some talent around him. I wouldn't send him to the Giants. That's a disaster. I wouldn't send him back to the Jets. Disaster. And all the other awful AFC teams either have their quarterback of the future or are going to have to draft somebody. It would sink Sam Darnold to go to a bad team. That's why I think he needs to stay with the Vikings. I think he needs to take a 2-year, $50 million deal, 2-year, $75 million deal, whatever it is. Let's be realistic about this, Sam. Look, you're not a young, up-and-coming quarterback anymore. You're a guy that found his spot. This is my meeting with you right now, Sam. Just take this money. Let's thrive.
Hold on. He's 27, so that just needs to be quickly brought up.
That's not 24. That's not 25.
Yeah, but that's like at the peak of your NFL career. He's got 7 years. If he signs the right 5-year deal for the next 5 seasons, he sets him up for a final contract and ideally to be in the Jared Goff situation of if the right team that is primed to go and run. Actually, now that I think about the Saints, are kind of a terrible pick.
He's had 14 good games. All right. We have to start being real about Sam Darnold. I think it has to be the Vikings. It is the best quarterback situation that they have had. I don't know, since 2009 when Favre just started winning games with them. Better than Bridgewater, better than any year with Cousins. The offense looks better. They don't look fraudulent. They don't look like these Vikings teams that were just kind of getting by with good records against when the NFC North is really bad. No. This is a Vikings team that has everything that they need. I would do everything I could to keep Sam Darnold. And I don't want to get into the whole J.J. McCarthy thing again. I'm not going to.
Well, we have to. It's the whole thing. It's the whole conversation.
Then he has to sit for 3 years. He has to sit for 2 to 3 years.
Your team is quite literally in this situation. But okay, that's my whole point is that he has to sit for a certain period of time, then eventually he takes over. Sam Darnold, you should not want to sign up for handing over the reins when your NFL career, it is ticking. There is time. Pick somewhere that really wants you, invest in you, and gives you a 5-year deal and a commitment after you've proven that you're good enough to start for a quality team. The problem is, though, that the options aren't great out there. There's not really like a team that's in a contention type position that's a quarterback away. All the teams that have quarterbacks are in the playoffs right now.
The difference between the Vikings and the Falcons is that Kirk Cousins is playing nowhere near the level of Sam Darnold, where nobody's saying here calling for McCarthy to get in.
You already just made that mistake. He can't get in. He's hurt.
I know. I understand.
You have a team that just made the mistake of making a long-term financial commitment to an aging quarterback, a much older quarterback than Sam Darnold.
Yes.
And then you now created a weird, awkward situation by having a young and an old quarterback. So why continue that awkward situation and just let him?
Because I don't think it's awkward in Minnesota if you're winning. And if they're winning the way that they are, where he's throwing 5 touchdowns and he's throwing consistently over 300 yards, that's not awkward. That is something where I think J.J. McCarthy has to say, would I put me in? Would I run this offense better? Could the offense move better with J.J. McCarthy in his second or third year? Probably not. It just won't. He's not. I don't think he's that guy that is going to add another layer to this Vikings offense, which has been one of the best in the NFL this year. I don't see that risk versus reward panning out for them. I think they need to do what they can to keep Darnold. It's just working. We've seen the Darnold experiment. We've seen it go, and we've seen him evolve. And, could he really go back to San Fran? Probably, maybe. But why would you take that chance when the best season you've ever had was with the Minnesota Vikings and that, I guess, wonderkind head coach in Kevin O'Connell?
Again, I just, I don't.
They made a mistake by drafting McCarthy. No, they didn't, because they didn't know. They didn't know Darnold was going to be like this. They didn't know he was going to be this good. They thought he was going to be a bridge quarterback, just a guy that could help show McCarthy the ropes. But now we are in a good situation with a bad undertone, which is we burned a first rounder on McCarthy. Well, that's what happened.
Well, one, I would use this as proof of concept of hey, look what we just did with this older quarterback, but that's playing at a really high level. As soon as JJ McCarthy's healthy, we're just going to hand things over to him and he's going to cook. The only way that they would keep Darnold is if it was another 1-year deal, and I think he'd be stupid to do that. 2 teams I would argue that actually possibly make sense. The Browns, who have the bones of a really good roster, I just don't know what their cap situation is. I would think that it actually is. I think it's pretty good if they can figure out how to get rid of Deshaun Watson. I'm not a cap expert. Or the hilarious thing to suggest is if Aaron Rodgers leaves the Jets, as if he returns to the Jets. But I wouldn't want to touch that franchise after the way that they handled him.
Yeah, no, he should never go back to the Jets. It looks like Browns are number 2 in cap availability.
So they have a ton of money.
Let's see what the 2020.
I'd go to the Browns then. The way that
the Browns are sunk next year
has. I would do that then. I would go to if I was in Browns or Saints actually aren't bad, but I know that they're in cap hell.
2025, Browns are second to worst cap hell. Saints are the worst cap hell.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to figure something out, clear it. 2025 Raiders, second best cap space.
Yeah, Raiders have a ton of money. So in that vein, right now we have a suck-off going for the first overall pick between the Las Vegas Raiders and the New York Giants. They have the same worst record in the NFL, and they're competing to have the Raiders and the Giants are competing to have the first overall pick. Now, Sheduer Sanders, I think many would believe, is going to be said first overall pick. We all know that it has been clear that he is going to, him and his father, DeLeone Sanders, are going to try to control the decision on where he lands. So it kind of doesn't truly matter who is the first or the second overall pick, because he ultimately could make that decision and just say to a team, don't draft me, take Cam Ward, which is still a great option to go to if he makes that statement. A lot of people are speculating with the way that he keeps tweeting after these Raider losses that he wants to be a Raider. Coincidentally, the Giants keep losing at the same time every single week, so nobody can tell which team it is. But that begs the question. If I'm Sheduer Sanders, which team do you want to play for? I still stand by removing my bias and still keeping it in there a little bit. I think that the Giants are his best situation. I think that defensively, they have an elite roster on their defensive side of the football. It just has been on the field so freaking much that they're gassed and they're now banged up. Offensively, their offensive line has been improving and just needs one more sure piece on that O-line to get better. The young receiving core is tremendous. The Raiders don't freaking have that. And lastly, you're in the mecca of attention. If you succeed in New York, you are going to be the most talked about. You're already the most talked about prospect in this class, but you will be the most talked about quarterback in the NFL next to Patrick Mahomes.
This is the hardest question that has been posed on this show to date, as the Giants are maybe the most cursed, dysfunctional franchise in the NFL. An argument could be made to say they've been the worst team over the last 5 years, given expectations and player and roster management. They have Malik Neighbors. That's great. That is a guy that if I was coming out of college, I would want to throw to. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I don't see many other players that I'm saying you need to stay on the island. You are somebody that is a necessity for us. Flip side, Raiders. They got one guy also, maybe two. Brock Bowers, I'd like to throw that guy if I'm coming out of college. Maybe Jacoby Myers stays on the island. Here's why the Giants may get the edge. And this is a disgusting thought to think that the Giants and Sheduer Sanders would work out. He should pass on both these teams. But the Raiders are not, and it's mostly Vegas is the reason. I don't think it's going to be a good scene for Sheduer Sanders coming in, because the Raiders don't have a home field advantage every single week.
Nope.
You never have a home crowd. You're constantly having other teams storm in, and you're just never going to play with a home field advantage, which I think helps young quarterbacks tremendously. Additionally, let's just break it down from a broad sense. Young quarterback, so much money dropped in Vegas. There's a reason that teams and franchises were so opposed to moving to Vegas for so long, because naturally you understand the beast that is Las Vegas. It's clubs, it's money, it's going out. Do I think that DeLeone Sanders is constantly preaching responsibility and security to Sheduer Sanders? Yes, I do. But I also remember what it was like to be 21, 22 with no money and what I was doing. God forbid somebody handed me $10 million. I'd be in a ditch, bloated, getting pulled out by a forklift on the side
he's got a little bit more on the line than you.
I know he does. I know.
He'd be responsible.
I would hope he would. But it's just, I don't like the thought of the movie that's going on in my head where it just doesn't work out. Vegas kills another young quarterback. It's just a brutal sense where the Giants, at least in the 2000s, they had one guy that could play quarterback pretty well in Eli. That was pretty good. He was pretty good for them. Other than that, total joke, disaster. But I think maybe New York is a safer option than Vegas, because the Giants have fans, and maybe they'd be willing to get a new coach. The Raiders seem lockstep in their stubborn ways and just constantly getting invaded by other teams' fans.
All right, folks, we're going to be back on Wednesday with our bets. Actually, well, no, just NFL bets.
Oh, yeah.
There's no college bet. We got to figure that out. At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. We'll talk to you folks later. Enjoy the rest of your week.